So, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the public hearing of the Conservation Commission for June 11th, 2013. Some housekeeping things before we begin. One is recording. I see Jim has his recording, Mr. Dombrowski. Mr. Powers, you have yours. Is anybody else recording? So we're recording for people at home. The other housekeeping thing is that how we do, for those any of you that are new to our hearing, what we do is we open the matter, whatever it is, and usually the homeowner comes up with all his maps or her maps and talks about it to the conservation members, and the commissioners chat and ask questions, and then when they're finished, they get first dibs. So when they're finished, I open it up to the floor, okay, and everybody will get a chance to speak. I just ask that you say your name and your address, because it's a public hearing. And we should be able to pick it up on this, okay? But if not, I will try and repeat the question. And we're a very informal group, so you'll see the commissioners actually do chat with the people at the floor, you know, the hearing, all that stuff. You don't have to stand on ceremony. But at a certain time, I will close the public hearing and bring it up, or at least the hearing outside, and bring it back to the commissioners, because at that time they're going to make a few decisions, whether they want to continue it, if the homeowner agrees, or whether they want to make a positive determination of this request or a negative determination, or whether they want to do a series of orders. So it's very, very simple. And tonight we have really just 3 items that we're going to talk about, and then we talk about our in-house stuff, which is do correspondence and building permits. So I'd like, if I may, there is an agenda. Commissioners, I'd like to take one item out of order. I note that in the new business, there is a request for a certificate of compliance for DEP number 84-449, 89 Block Street. Paul Zakrowski, 89 Block Street, LLC. And I would like to take that as the first item, if you are agreeable. Okay, so who's here for 89 Block Street? Now let me get you another chair.
Good evening. Hi there. I'll probably end up putting this over here and disconnecting the microphone.
No. So this is on for a certificate, request for certificate of compliance, Mr. Potter, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
So what are we doing here, John?
Good evening. My name's John Cotter, and this is Russell Wheatley. I'm Russell Wheatley. I work at the Russell Wheatley Company, and we are here for a certificate of compliance on the property on Block Street, number 89, for Paul Zakrowski and Roger Woods of 89 Block Street, LLC. They have, if I may, in our certificate, in our application for a certificate, we were requested as part of it, because there was a plan involved, that we do a letter specifying how the project was constructed and how closely it conforms to the order of conditions that was submitted to you back in 2012. This project was brought to you as a well, not to you, but the previous board had used this, and it had kind of developed into a. It started out as a duplex. It was going to be a duplex. There was people didn't like the duplex. The neighborhood didn't like the duplex, and the developers decided to change it to a single family and brought in an amended plan. Excuse me, to the Conservation Commission. They allowed the single family rather than the duplex, and so then they went forward and constructed it. When we were requested to do the survey, we went out and we did it on the 1st of June and the 6th of June, and at the time we found the plan and the site done in substantial compliance with the order of conditions. I brought a copy of the design plan, if you wanted to take a look at it, to compare the as-built plan to the design plan. And what we did is, we noted the differences between the design plan that you have in front of you and the as-built plan. There were three what we considered fairly minor items that were changed from the plans. One was that the driveway as constructed was constructed actually smaller than the proposed driveway. There's an appendage that runs up along the side of the house that they did not put in. Instead, they slightly widened the other excuse me, the side of the driveway. The second was that they didn't put the front porch on the house. There was one that was proposed to be constructed along the front of the house. They omitted that. They decided they didn't want to do that. And all in all, the grades, although are fairly close, the grades are slightly different than were proposed there. But we're saying slightly different. Were less than a foot here and there. It wasn't just consistency of the construction. All in all, it was we considered it a pretty good job as far as the comparison between the design plan and the as-built plan. So, with that said, we are just here simply to ask for a certificate of compliance based on what you see in front of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Are there any questions or comments? No. The resource area, is it up here? Is this?
Yeah, what's shaded in green is where the delineation of the wetlands are.
Okay. I'm going to put it out to the floor. Is there anybody? I don't think there is anybody here, but is there anybody here for this matter? No? Okay. Bring it back in. Any more questions or comments? So, gentlemen, can I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
Make a motion, we approve the certificate of compliance for Mr. Zakarowski.
Thank you, Jerry. A second?
Second.
Russ? Okay, all those in favour?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you need any of these for your record?
Do we need them? Actually, we do.
Got
We
it.
need one. We already have the letter. Oh, we have it.
Yeah, okay, great. Have a good night. Thank you.
I didn't introduce you, but you know all the guys, right?
Yes,
Phil
yes,
and Russ,
we've met.
this room, yeah. Been here a few times.
Yep, oh yeah, we'll be back.
Look forward to it.
Have a good night.
Thank you. So we move back into our old business, and the first, if I may, I'm going to take it out of order again, and instead of doing Adam Street, we're going to move to the continued hearing for DEP number 84-466, notice of intent by James Kiernan and Catherine Murphy to replace an existing bridge over the river and installation of fence on northern property line to river at 12 Temple Street. So Mr. Kiernan, Ms. Murphy, you want to come up? Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
And you know everybody, right? You know there's.
No.
I
We can
remember your
introduce
faces from
ourselves.
last time.
I'm Dennis
I know you.
Ryan.
How are you?
Okay.
Yep. Kim and Jerry, Mr. Newman. Us.
Bill Stone. Hi. How you doing?
Cool. Okay, so it was continued, right?
Correct.
So there was a few questions that they threw out. So I think about the plane, floodplain,
The floodplain? Yes.
measurements.
Mhm.
So what have you found? What have you found?
The measurements of the floodplain, you mean?
Well, yes, what have you followed up on?
All I have is basically, I do have a few copies of the floodplain map, which does show pretty much the line and basically where the bridge would be.
Right.
And I didn't really understand exactly what the
What the
floodplain
numbers
was.
were?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
Okay. I think that was literally to see, well, what else did you find out? And we can pass this along, but what else you got?
Okay, I did know where the, right where the bridge is, I can actually pass this around to everybody. The question about if it was a permitted bridge, I know I was asked about that. If you need to get a permit, talk to the building department.
Yes, that's right, we were worried about that, and we said, go to the building inspector, so
Yeah.
what happened there?
He said it is under the regulation, footage requirement and also height off the ground for, any permit or inspection. Because it's basically considered pretty much a footbridge. Seeing it's only 70 square feet, and to be inspectable or anything like that, it needs to be over 200 square feet.
Too small, okay.
Yeah. that's
And
what-
then you did chat to the DEP, right?
Yes.
About this, and what did they tell you about this project?
I did talk to them, and they said that, you know, it would be considered kind of pretty much pre-developed land, which I do have some other pictures of what the previous state looked like back 15, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, which I can pass around. Of previous pictures of the bridge. Which I did swear it in, just so you can see where the bridge is, the field on the other side of the river, basically. See, my property does cross the river, and the bridge is the only way to actually get across and maintain it.
So I also did my homework on this and looked up the CMRs, the DEP CMRs, the DEP officer was referring to, and that you looked at.
And I do have a few copies of those also.
310 CMR 1058-5, which talks about redevelopment within previously developed riverfront areas, restoration and mitigation, and specifically F, where they talked about if you're doing it again, if you're doing restoration, there are 4 issues that you should think about. Removal of all debris, grading to a topography that reduces the runoff and increases infiltration, coverage by topsoil if required, and
Actually-
seeding and planting if there's erosion in the seed, right? And gentlemen, I have copies of this. So how many do we need? 6, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm just going to pass this down, take it and pass it down. Nancy, I'm going to give you one for your reference. Okay. And I'm just going to pass this to the people who are here. So I made enough copies. So if you want to pass this out, you will get the next that you can work on. So he looks at the
we have one with
floodplain,
bigger
he looks
print.
at the heights.
You sure?
He looked at that the bridge was already there and he was restoring it. Now, if you remember at the last hearing, although I did notice that CMR, we actually took the hearing as if it was a new construction. We looked at it there, and I said that I did know about this regulation, which literally is a sort of a form of a waiver. So are there any comments or questions? Sorry, are you on questions?
No, I have a few pictures of the new bridge, and
Oh,
also
let's
some of
put
the
that up.
heights.
Yeah, excellent.
This is the first picture, just the side view, looking southerly down over from the river, like looking south towards the bridge. And here was one of the height, basically the height of the river at the time, which is right before the last hearing. The height of the river was 3 inches, and the height of clearance is about 28 inches or so from the bottom of the riverbed to the bottom of the bridge. So from the top of the water, it would probably be about 25 inches at that time. And as of today, right now, the river is about 6 inches of height. I went out and measured it before coming.
6 more inches?
No, 3 more inches. It's
3
like
more
6
inches,
Three
6
more
inches
inches.
total,
Since
with
the-
the heavy rains and
Yeah.
everything. And this is just a couple others that show how it passes. It's 5 feet wide, total of 14 feet spanning the river. It's actually sitting right on top of the riverbank on either side.
Are there any comments?
So in order to hit the bridge, we need 22 more inches of rain. That's
Today,
basically what you're
right now,
talking about.
22 more inches of rain. And then also the span between the bank is about right around 8 to 9 feet
Mm-hmm.
as it decreases down to the water.
And we do have a man-made pond in our backyard that will take any extra water before it rises over the
Before it
banks.
actually hits the bridge.
And you've been maintaining this land all along? Just
Yes,
with
my
the other-
family
with-
has,
With the other
yeah.
bridge, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other comments? Nancy and I want to put one word comment, and that's that Mr. Dombrowski mentioned about earlier files, right, Mr. Dombrowski? So Nancy and I did look, in fact Nancy brought them today, we did look at earlier files to do with your land or land bordering on your land.
Yes.
And we saw two things. We're talking about 1980s and 1990s.
Yeah, this is
but-
back my grandmother's things.
That's right.
Yeah.
So one of them was that there was a cease and desist for that man-made pond where guys were throwing fridges and stuff like that in. So they did a cease and desist that they were going to fill in the pond, and I think they did a cease and desist at that time. I
Too
couldn't,
young for that.
reading the file, I don't know how that ended, but the pond is still there. There's no fridges there. I didn't
No.
see any. Right. But and then the other thing was somebody in the 90s was going to just clean the bank.
Mhm.
And there was, they'd actually asked for a request for determination on that. I think that was it. And those were the only two things that Nancy and I could find in the history of the files. So does any of, actually you can pass those files to the commissioner if anybody wants to see them. These are the two files. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, so I'm going to put it out to the floor. Dombrowski.
Jeff Dombrowski, 28 Temple Street. At the last meeting, we had two abutters that made comments. One was Mr. Benash, and the other one was Mr. Gentile. For the record, both of those abutters do not have property that abuts the stream and not subject to an area that may be subject to flooding. For the record, as of this date, I have not seen any plans that reflect topography, wetlands delineation, wetlands replication, or floodplain replication. Nothing that shows the elevation of what the floodplain is. Mr. Cannon was requesting about putting up a fence. I have no problems with it as long as he has the line properly drawn on the plans, which the plans that were submitted do not reflect the property line. It should go before the fence viewer for clarification, because if you look at the plan
I'm
that
pretty
was
sure we
drawn
weren't talking about a fence.
by Kyle Garvey in the town's assessors plans, they're two different things, and I have deeds that correlate to that. The other thing that you're gonna have to deal with is you're dealing with a federally regulated floodplain. That river is federally regulated. For him to put a bridge across that stream, he may have to go before the Army Corps of Engineers.
Because of the water.
I have
I mean,
seen nothing
large
that's been
body.
put forth or any letter of request.
Okay. So,
But at the last meeting, I showed you copies of the pictures dating back to 1986 and 1990 that showed the bridge that was attempted to be built then and the flooding issue that was created. Now, Mr. Gentile sat here and said he never saw it flood. I'm sorry, Mr. Cannon, your property does flood. And that man-made pond, when it does flood, is not considered overflow area or compensatory storage.
the man-made pond.
A
Not,
man-made pond.
we're talking about the river though, aren't we?
The
That-
river,
Yes.
when it
He's gonna talk
overflows
about
its
whatever he
banks,
wants to talk about.
overflows the entire area. If you look at the floodplain profile, it starts from Lincoln Street all the way down. And it fans out as it hits Mr. Cannon's property.
Yes, that's
Right
about
at the
right there.
area where the bridge is.
Okay, all right.
Jimmy, when's the last time it overflowed? Can remember?
Last big storm we had was the last heavy 3-inch storm. You go out there now and it's gonna be coming up, it's gonna be rising. It's not coming up that high. When you have a good heavy 10-year flow, you're talking a 5-inch rainstorm.
Well, this person said that they had never seen it, and you've been there all your life.
Mr. Benash, how many years have you lived up there?
12 years.
12 years. Mr. Gentile lived in his house approximately maybe same amount of years. I'm telling you that it has. I'm probably the only person that's taken a boat and gone down that river to the Allen Grove.
Well, I understand that.
I wanna know, how is the bridge gonna affect the overflow of the river?
When that, have you seen the construction of that bridge?
I just saw a picture of it.
Photos.
What is it made out of?
Made out, it looks like timber and wood.
2 pine logs. How long is it gonna take for a pine log to rot? That was the problem that was happening before, was the construction of the materials. There's nothing submitted to the Conservation Commission on the materials being used for the design.
There's nothing needed.
The-
The building inspector already.
I'm not talking about the
The building inspector is the one that inspects any kind of construction.
Okay.
We are involved with the waterways. This has, and that's why I just wanna know, what is the problem with that bridge affecting the waterway?
When you have a 10-year storm event, or even a higher storm event, that is gonna act as a flood impedance. It's gonna cause that water to back up.
The bridge is over the grassy area now.
It's built into the riverbank. Do you know where the floodplain goes?
It's down to Ames Knoll Park.
Excuse me?
Ames Knoll Park? Where the river goes?
Yeah.
Yes, goes down to Ames Knoll Park.
No.
Island Grove, what am I thinking, yeah. Sorry.
But you,
wrong
are
place.
you familiar with what the
That's what
floodplain profile is for that area?
Yeah, it's
Not exactly, no.
Slopes
Well,
down.
then I would suggest that you request information so that you get a better look.
No, that's not the question I have for you.
Inch.
I wanna know what,
8 to 10 inch rise.
what is the problem with that bridge if we have a 10-year storm? How is that bridge
That
gonna
bridge is gonna
affect?
collapse, and it's gonna cause that water to back up from that property all the way north.
And it looks like it's on a height
That's
too.
what I want
See,
to know.
it's lifted
Yes,
up.
sir.
David
Bernard, 62 Lincoln Street.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, yep.
Go ahead.
I just,
But, actually, I'll stop you. Were you
That's fine.
finished?
No, I have a picture here
Oh,
dated
okay, sorry,
dated 1990. It doesn't show a bridge there, and it shows the area all vegetated. I showed that at the last meeting to the commission. I have another one that shows the old bridge that was the subject of the complaint, original complaint back in 1986, showing the water backing up in that area. So the original bridge they keep on talking about that was originally built, that they were replacing, was never permitted. Never went through the permitting process of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
And there was a lengthy period of time prior to the reconstruction of this bridge that there was nothing there.
Okay, so there once was a bridge, but there wasn't for a
There was
period of time.
an unpermitted bridge constructed some time ago that was removed prior to this gentleman purchasing the property.
Mr.
I would-
Ambassador, Mr.
I'd like just to go back, as far as the permitted bridge go, I would like to go back that there's no permit needed for this bridge from the building inspector. We have that in writing. So there is no permit needed.
That's right, we actually
Okay.
have, yeah.
So as far as a permitted bridge goes by the building inspector, it is not necessary.
When I refer to unpermitted, I'm talking about unregulated by the Abington Conservation Commission for that period of time.
Okay. I
There
just
was
had a-
no-
We don't regulate construction. You do realize that, any kind of,
You
we regulate
regulate the activity, sir.
the activity,
The
yes.
activity of constructing the bridge over that river is a regulated activity by
Right,
this
but
Conservation Commission,
if
which
form-
at that time, there was no order of conditions
Right. and
permitting it.
Maybe there wasn't needed one, we were not on the board.
Always
then.
Okay,
Always been
well,
one.
that's why we're here today. Absolutely, you're dead right. Mr. Stenning.
Just a quick clarification, so
Yes.
is the sole purpose of the bridge for you to get from one part of your property to the other?
Yes.
Is there no other means?
There's no other means unless I
see.
wanna walk through the river, pretty
Right.
much.
Okay.
There's no other means to maintain it,
Mm-hmm.
which before we had, back when we previously owned a lot more of that property over there, there was volleyball court, horseshoe pits.
Mm-hmm.
And since the property's been sold off, I still own some of the property, probably about 30, 40 feet on the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And still like to maintain it, to make sure there's no obstructions, which I do have another picture here of obstructions of, storm damaged trees, vines facing northerly, which is also towards Mr. Dombrowski's property.
Mm-hmm.
That basically, where is it, this picture here is facing southerly of what I've been basically maintaining, making sure there's no obstructions.
Mm-hmm.
And this is heading northerly towards Lincoln Street.
Can I see that?
We need
Dennis?
to pass that one around. That's from standing on the bridge, heading the other way.
Okay, can I?
Are
is
these
there
tree
anything-
logs, tree logs?
Yeah, they're 14-inch diameter, 14
Okay.
feet long.
That's what I want to know, that's fine.
Is there
And
somebody
they're
else who'd
4x4
like-
posts, 2x10
Mm-hmm.
planking.
Anybody? Yep, sorry, I beg your pardon, yep,
sorry, David Bernard, 62 Lincoln Street.
yep.
I've lived, my property is on the other side of the field, so you have the river in the field, and then my property's on the other side. I've lived there for 12 years. Friends of the Kernan's family, so know people that have lived there prior. friends of other people on the street and other neighbors have gone to use the bridge, both bridges, the old bridge and the new bridge I've used. Saw the old bridge failing, actually told my daughter she cannot go across that old bridge because that was a major safety issue. So now that we have the new bridge, I just wanna say, like I said in my letter, I just wanna say thank you to these guys for building it because it is safe, it is nice. Makes it easy to go across. I went across it a few weeks ago to talk to Jim or something, so it's needed. It's definitely needed in the area to get across the river.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to talk?
Actually, one more thing also.
Yeah, good choice.
I know everybody's probably from the town, been in the town a while. I don't know if anybody remembers back when Route 18 did flood, back quite a few years ago. I don't remember exactly what year it was. It was during heavy rain. I know there was a lot of heavy flooding in Brockton, around the Abington area. This was probably 10+ years ago, I would think.
It was after 2001 when we did.
Yeah.
I was living in that.
During that heavy rainstorm, those riverbanks, because I was actually living at the house at the time, before I left for the service, those riverbanks did not overflow. The pond did get very full, and the water was almost flush with the riverbanks, but the bridge that we did have there at the time was constructed also kind of the same way, high enough so the water could still pass, was bank to bank, and we did not have any obstructions or any problems with blockage at that time. But yet Route 18 was underwater, and I remember was closed down for a little while.
Is this bridge higher than
Yes, it's
the
about-
prior one?
It's a little bit higher,
Okay.
the decking of it.
Mr. Dombrowski?
For the record, what plans do you have showing elevation and the various features such as the floodplains and things of that nature? Do you have the original one that was submitted by Kyle Garvey?
We have, well, in flooding plain, we have this, right? And then, do we have a plan that went with the notice of intent?
The plan that was submitted with the notice of intent was the one done by Kyle Garvey, which is a plot plan.
I do have the one from 2009 also here,
Okay.
in my name, of a plot plan. It does show the bridge when I did buy the house.
Okay. So we have these two plans.
That was 2000, yeah, that was 2005.
Now,
The
this
bridge was
one,
there.
this is just, is this an as-built subdivision of land?
Yeah,
So
that was when
it
they,
doesn't show, for us, it doesn't show the actual wetlands, does it?
So you
There's
have
the
no
bridge,
plans
though.
that show actual topography or anything of that nature?
What date is this plan?
that one's 2005 when Mr. Dalton purchased the property from my
So,
grandmother.
Mr. Feeney has pointed out there was a bridge over to Shumatusket at that time in the plan, right there. Okay,
And that's actually what surveyors have used, I know, to get across to survey other properties and previous properties.
do you have anything else, Mr. Dombrowski?
That property was subdivided with access coming off of Lincoln Street. The other thing you may have to be filing with.
No, Mr.
Well,
Dombrowski, I would ask what your, what your opinions are, that's what we're here to,
My opinion?
your advice, we can actually handle how to do this job.
My opinion is
Yeah.
this is gonna create an issue with flooding when you have a serious storm event.
Okay,
That's gonna create an issue. I have seen the area flood. I have seen the major storms. You haven't seen a major storm come through here. You're not old enough to know any of the storms dating back to the 1950s or the 60s when we had serious storms, what they call 100-year floodplains. That's one of the reasons why I'm asking that information. In accordance with the regulations, you're supposed to design it with those things in mind.
okay,
I specifically asked about the 10-year flood elevation
yep,
and the 100-year flood elevation.
yep,
The other thing
We
in
did
accordance
too.
with the River Protection Act, 310 CMR 10.58, you may be required to file a Form 6 for the alternative analysis on this.
okay, okay, right. Is there anything else? Do you have anything else to add?
No, like I said, my original complaint
Yeah.
was that this should be removed and the area restored. Not in the permitting
Right.
process, but removed.
Right, because you're worried about the flow of water.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any
Oh.
other comments?
He's worried
fine.
about the flow of water.
Joe
Yeah.
Buscari,
Hi.
we live up on Fisher Drive
Yeah,
in Abington. I've known this young man and his family for probably 15, 20 years. And I just would like to clarify, how long has your family owned that property?
Since 1962.
And did you ever hear from anybody talk about flooding in that backyard?
Not over the riverbanks. The pond does get deep, and we used to skate on it as kids, you know, during some of the heavy rains, and once we do get a, you know,
Good freeze.
good freeze, but we've never seen it come over the banks.
So it's not as though he hasn't been there, his grandmother lived there, it's been in their family for quite a while. I just want to point out that he would be probably more likely to know.
Okay.
He's ever been
But
flooded.
you're a butters of
Pardon
this. You're a butters of this. You live on. Oh, you're not.
No.
Okay.
And we're just here for moral support. But I also
Okay.
think that it's important to note that this young man served 8 years in the Army. And you know what? I think that any help that you can give him with whatever he has to do would be appropriate.
Also need to help out with.
Okay, Mr.
flooding
Dombrowski, I'm going to
Katrina
bring
and
it
stuff,
back.
so
but
thank
I
you very
want
much.
you to
Well,
last-
30 years lived there, we've lived there since 1952.
Right.
If needed, I get the previous owners of that property, who were the Bowkers, who could testify to the actual flooding of the area. I specifically asked for floodplain elevations placed on plans, so that you can see where the floodplain is.
I mean, it is a real concern. It is a real concern. If I may, if there's nothing else that people want to contribute, I'm going to bring it back to the commission, okay? Is there any comments?
Yes, we're talking constantly about the 1950s and the drainage and the floods. Since then, Route 139, Route 18 have been improved drainage on both roads. I don't know about Temple Street itself, so there's been no flooding since, how old are you?
33.
In 33 years that you know of, that you can remember. So we're going back to 1950, and as far as I can tell from the conversation I've heard, that nothing about the 60s, 70s, or 80s. And we're in the 2013 right now. Okay, so if we're gonna look at this realistically, the drainage problems might have been taken care of with new roads and new construction. If there's been no flooding in the last 10 years, then a 10-year plan, we've had a lot of rain in the last 10 years. Okay? And as far as the construction of this goes, it looks well constructed to me.
Is there any other comment? Mr. Dombrowski, I'm going to close.
The only issue that hasn't been
Close.
addressed is the location of the fence.
Oh, I was gonna bring that up.
I would like to do that, I really would, but actually that's way beyond our thing. Unless he's putting a fence in the way.
If I may suggest to Mr. Cannon, present where he's gonna place the fence on a plan and present it to the town's fence viewer. So that
Can
the
easily
fence
do
viewer
that.
can look at both arguments of where he wants to put the fence and my position also.
Well, that's really out of, this. It's not part of
Right.
this room. You know, absolutely. I think the fence viewer is the town manager.
Well,
So there's
the
that
other
brand
thing
new
is, the
fence.
fence is gonna be placed within your jurisdiction.
It will be, and we do look at that, but usually there's a work permit for that, if at all, there's a work permit for that. So, unless there is, that's not quite true. There sometimes is a request for determination on the fence, you're quite right, there. But I think that we are looking really at the bridge here. That's what we did do an order of cease and desist, to stop building the bridge until we talked about it. We asked you to come with a notice of intent. So I think the first thing is a vote, if you feel comfortable with this, a vote accepting the plans, but also giving either a negative, a determination, or positive determination. Actually, no, we don't do that, sorry. I'm going to still my Crestwood thing. I think we have to do an orders of condition, okay?
But you have to vote to accept the plan.
So can I have a motion to accept the plan as presented to us, the plans for the bridge?
I mean, make a motion to accept the plans as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
No second.
Bill? All those in favour?
Aye.
All right, so the next step is we're going to do orders of condition. As you know, we do that by looking at the form orders that we have. So we will do that before the end of the meeting,
Mhm.
okay?
Okay.
We'll move on. So, is that okay?
Yep.
Thank you. And we're gonna keep some of this stuff. So did you give me this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what you.
Okay, and you know what, we might keep the photographs here, just in case it goes any further.
You can have them all.
Can we have them all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Cool.
copies.
That would be the
Copies.
file.
Yeah.
All right,
This one?
Do you want this one also, or this piece of northerly? That's what
Sure,
it looks like now.
sure.
Yeah, anything that you have.
That's,
absolutely.
some of the, basically the debris and stuff that's,
You put it, yeah, you should give everything, in case it does go before DEP, you should give everything the DEP
I think
wants to
that's
see. Is that
everything
it?
we have.
Okay, and those are all the documents that we relied on.
okay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kernan, Murphy. Thank you, Mr. Dombrowski, thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
that's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do our orders of condition.
Okay.
Nancy will tell you about them. We'll be all fine.
Okay, do we, is that at the end of this meeting, or?
It will be at the end of this meeting. We certainly don't have to stay around for it, but it will be at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
Oh, let's stay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to move to the last thing in the old business, which is DEP number 84-465, notice of intent, Adam Street. And Mr. Shacksmith has requested that we continue this 1 month, as they do not have completed planning approval. So the owner has agreed to do that. Nancy, do we need a vote to continue this for 1 month? So can I have somebody who would vote to continue this matter for 1 month?
Make a motion to continue this.
Yeah. Joe, and then Russ,
Second.
second. Okay, all those in favour?
Okay, so that would be the July 9th meeting.
July 9th.
To walk it, it was way there, and he said, well, we need plot plans.
Actually, that's good because Kathy had questions on
Before
that.
they put it right away, as it doesn't show on here,
All
he says,
right.
we do something, but there about 5 titles ago, I found them, there is actually.
Let's
on
move
record,
into
last night,
correspondence
Past 30, 40
and
years,
approval of the minutes.
14
All of that,
foot
all
wide,
that,
right
yeah.
away, goes all the way up, and now his property's on that.
So gentlemen, you know how usually I'm
This is Adam
blindsided
Street
by the
here.
correspondence? That's usually brutal
This is
notes
Adam
that I start reading.
Yeah.
This is the,
This is the old driving, right?
Guys,
guys, are you okay?
One's over here.
We can go over that when we do the
Sorry.
orders of conditions.
we'll do that in a month.
Oh, is that Adam Street?
What was the question?
Yes.
It was pretty.
What was it?
Correspondence.
In keeping with the mood at the moment, here is a note that I'd like to read out. It's an email to Nancy. Hello, Nancy. I would like to offer a presentation of edible, perennial gardening and landscaping in Abington next year, and would be applying to the Abington Cultural Council for funding. Would the Abington Conservation Commission be interested in enabling me to apply for the grant by endorsing this event with a letter of support? Please feel free to call me with any questions. So this is a gentleman who wants us to endorse a speech, a talk he has on edible perennial gardening and landscaping. It's got to be up your street, Mr. Noonan. Edible landscaping. Edible landscaping. Past them.
I'd rather not,
I mean, that
I'd
sounds
rather
like,
not eat it.
would the commissioners like Nancy and I to find out more information about that?
When he's saying edible, is he
Edible.
talking fruit?
I don't, maybe herbs and stuff like that. I mean, it's interesting, right? It beats looking at a fence.
Yeah, I'd want to know more about it before.
I think so. Okay.
Edible perennial garden. Okay.
So is it a
More-
consensus
yeah, well,
to
yeah.
find out about it? Maybe
Yes.
have samples, you know, I'll invite
A
you.
motion to learn more.
Emotional learn more. Okay, we'll handle that. Okay, thank you. And approval of minutes of May 14th and May 28th.
Okay, the 28th isn't finished yet, but the 14th.
Okay, and the 14th we got in our packages. Did you all get a chance to have a look at them?
I abstain, right? Because I wasn't here.
You weren't here, that's right, you don't get to vote, sorry. We still have 5 people here at the convention. So, how I used to do it on another committee is I would just circle my name whenever I saw it come up so that I would see what was said. But does anybody comments or changes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 14, 2013?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting, April 14th,
Se-
May, sorry.
Yep, May 14.
Second.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
No,
Okay,
May
so
20th.
carried. And the last thing is the building permits.
That was mine.
Yep,
Go up there, it's all right.
it's all set.
Just the other lot, not on the other side of the, what's it called, which is
Yep,
altogether different than what we talked about previous.
right. Excellent. Okay, so we got through all our business on our meeting. So now we'll do our orders of condition. And this is the orders of condition for DP number 84-466. Now, I think the, Nancy, we're going to refer in the orders of condition to that regulation 310 CMR 1058, 5 in parentheses, F in parentheses. So this one, and then
Oh, okay.
okay, and there is a guidance there for, is there consensus that there used to be a bridge there? And that they were
Yes.
really just rebuilding the bridge?
Yes.
Okay. So the directions that the regulations suggest us is that if there's restoration, there should be removal of all debris that they did. 2, grading to topography that reduces the runoff. So literally to do the runoff. And Mr. Feeney and I were looking at, as you were discussing, we looked how the banks go down into the river. Coverage by topsoil, consistent with what used to be there. That's number 3. And seeding and planting where there was any erosion. In other words, where any plants or anything were taken away. I don't think we had any testimony in the last 2 meetings, this meeting and the last meeting, that anything was taken away. And I didn't see anything when I went out there. So we do have guidance on that. So in our order of standard conditions, what is, I think, the most important thing that this is a bridge that's already built, so we're kind of looking in hindsight, but what would be our main concern?
I'd say the flow of the river.
Yeah, just any debris going into the river.
Debris, right.
Right.
So a condition would be to prevent any debris going into the river. All right. I'm looking at the standard order of conditions, and I look at erosion and sedimentation controls. And really we're looking at this from the point of the river. But I think that in as much as any of them apply, they would all apply, simply that we don't want any erosion in the river. Would you agree? So it would be A1
Correct.
through 6. Now, it's A1 through 5, because we don't have a siltation barrier. There's no barrier.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
do you want that in or out, the work line, line feet from wetland edge?
No, because this is on the riverbank. So I suppose we don't include A1, which is just putting in a fence. A2 we put in, which is adequate erosion. A3, stabilize the soils. A4, keep the gradings stabilized. A5, storm drains. Would you agree to those? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then drainage and runoff. So this is what Mr. Dombrowski was talking about, which is a definite concern in any time we work in the riverbank. And he certainly was right about, for any big body of water, the Army Corps of Engineers is a reference. But I would think that B1, which is what Mr. Dombrowski was talking about, to make sure that it's not does not alter the peak rate of runoff of the 2, 10 and 100-year storms. And we are happy that that is not an issue here. B2, drainage and flow patterns shall not be altered. B3, that landowner is in charge of maintenance of the property and not to plan DPW. B7, if there is any erosion or sedimentation problems, you know, as we're going to deal with, I think Roundhall Street is an issue with that, that they certainly have to tell the Commission immediately if there is erosion. And that's about it for that. Does that look right?
So B5 wouldn't apply, B6 would apply?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Well, Jerry, do you think B5 would apply to stormwater?
I don't have the thing in front of me.
Ah, okay.
I
Come on,
forgot.
do you guys not have it? Am I just?
Oh, I gave you the
Oh,
stuff.
man.
We're just listening to you.
Oh, don't let me do that. Don't let me do that.
Sorry,
You're
it's very
killing me
eloquent,
here.
Dennis.
You're killing me. I was wondering why you were just kind of looking at me going, yeah. Well, whatever you say, mate.
Yeah,
I'm not sharing.
Yeah, did somebody want a copy? Did you say you wanted a copy? Sure, yeah, absolutely.
What page are we on now?
Well, we're on, we've flying, we're on page 5. No, we're on
B
the second page.
Huh?
The B section.
B?
We're on.
I don't have,
First page?
do you need that?
Give you, but
Yeah, A1 wouldn't apply.
yeah.
No, we're on A1. Joe and Dennis are on like.
We're flying. Do you need to go back to A, or we're all happy? Do you need to go back to B? And the only question we had is the stormwater detention basin, which I don't think is really an issue here. It's a bridge across the river. There is a pond further on. Flood control is C. And I don't think that there is. There is actually a pond, which is the storage area. Mr. Dabrowski is right about that. Do you think C4 applies? No, it doesn't, because it's to do with a detention pond. D, which is surface water and groundwater quality control. Again, I don't think that's an issue here. Would I be right?
I think you're right.
Wetland replication plans. Now, he is modifying the river and the bank. I mean, that's why he's here. And I would say,
Well,
He's just replacing.
he didn't build
He didn't-
anything into the B,
any
didn't
damage
build anything
was
into the
already-
bank.
no,
He
the
placed it on top of the bank.
and I didn't
but
see, that's right, yeah,
He didn't actually do any kind of
right,
bank work, from what the photo showed.
right. Well, no more than what was done before.
Correct.
No more than what was
Right.
done before, yeah. Okay. F doesn't really affect us, it's the wildlife habitat. G are the rules that the construction people have to go by in construction. Not really an issue, because we're coming a little bit late to this, so. Sorry, there's no more work being done on it, right?
No.
Do we have an issue with the fence, do you think?
What?
Do we have an issue with the fence? You're still gonna do the fence, aren't you?
Yep.
I think it should be a separate issue.
Yeah,
Separate
it's a
issue.
separate issue, but I don't think we have a problem with it as long as it's within the 100-foot buffer, right?
Exactly. That's what they told us last time we were here. They didn't care what we did with our land, just as long as we were X amount of feet from the river.
Right, as
Correct.
long as you're inside your boundary lines, I think that's
Yeah.
between you and the building, or fence viewer, or whoever
Right.
inspects them at this point. I don't think we have anything to do with that.
Okay,
You just can't build it in the wetlands
It
or
won't.
across the river or something like that.
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, it's just about one piece of property.
Okay, so administrative conditions. H2 is an order that just carries, any orders to do with this carries to every successor in the land. So, do we need to do it recorded at the registry of deeds? I'm looking at H3. So, you know, the older commission never did this. they always made an exception of this. So I'm not too sure if this is an issue for the registry of deeds. Mr. Noonan's nodding his head saying no.
Registry of deeds only, you're a lawyer, only includes boundaries and changing of the structures.
Yeah.
This
I
is
mean,
just
for big
replacing what's there.
projects. Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, we can deal with that expense.
Well, let's say on the map from 2005, it already had it on there anyway.
It already had it.
Yeah.
So,
It was already there,
Mhm.
so, yeah. I'm looking at, I've gone through H, I don't think any of it really applies to us. I'm looking at I or to the landowner. And the I just talks about a chronological sequence of events.
Done.
Okay. Done. Okay, he said it, all right. So we have accepted the plan with a notice of intent, accepted notice of intent, and we've ordered it with these orders.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
how does he get a certificate of compliance?
Where is the certificate of compliance? That's
No,
it.
no, I mean, if we're giving him an order, he's gotta be able to get,
Yeah,
so what do we want him to do for?
for the certificate of compliance. I think, you guys are looking at me. I think this, but what do we want to do for the certificate of compliance? Simply tell us that he has performed, which I think he has performed exactly as we wanted. There hasn't been any changes that we've asked him to do on what he's done, has there?
no.
Yeah. So if he follows all the orders, which of course he has, then a certificate of compliance follows.
Okay, does he have to submit a letter or?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you do have to submit a letter for a certificate of compliance. Okay.
If he just sends in a letter saying, we have completed replacement of this bridge in accordance with the Town of Abington Standard Order of Conditions, would that be enough?
Yes, so what Mr. Noonan's saying is that we're gonna waive, because we are the arbiters for this, we can decide what we wanna do, and we're gonna waive the requirement that you have to have an engineer's letter. So, today, earlier on, there was, a group of people that did want a certificate of compliance, and they had a letter from an engineer saying that, more or less, you know, the plans were followed, and the orders were followed. We're actually going to waive this, just because of the circumstances, okay, because you went and did it. All right, and we have gone out and had a look at it. We actually have gone and seen it. So you're right. We'll also waive, and in fact, we should put that in. And any certificate of compliance will waive the requirement for an engineer's letter. I'm not sure if it's telling us to put that in, but you should put that in. Okay, is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
What your letter should say is that we have completed replacement of the bridge in accordance with the Town of Abington Standard Order of Conditions. And that's, because we just went through the standard order of conditions and
Yeah.
you're in compliance,
Yeah.
as far as we're concerned.
So we send it to
No,
No,
send it
to-
to- The DP does know about this.
Yeah.
DP does know about this,
Yeah.
but it's, it goes to us,
Okay.
okay? All right, and that's it. Do we need any vote? No, I don't think we need a vote. We're all set.
I think so.
Yeah, we voted to, accept those with those orders, and those were the orders. Right,
Okay.
Great.
it being 5 to 8, 7:55, is there any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
One more, actually, one more thing.
Oh.
I wanted to actually bring up,
Yes.
You went through the process of issuing an order of conditions for 12 Temple Street. I'd like to go on record requesting a copy of the order of conditions on this property, and that the commission so advise the applicant what the appeal process is.
Advise you what the appeal process
No,
is?
the commission should advise the applicant of what the appeal process is.
All right. Mr. Dombrowski, honestly, we will advise the clients, the homeowners when they do want their advice, and if those issues rise up. I mean, honestly, I do appreciate all your help, really. Your institutional knowledge is fantastic, but I think you've got to give us a breather sometimes, okay?
I'm just asking, I'm requesting a copy of the order of conditions, and that you should advise the applicant that nothing should be done until it has been processed in at least 10 days. That's the appeal
So
process.
noted.
You should so advise everyone of that.
So noted, okay. Do I have, sorry, Mr. Feeney was going to say there is one other issue.
Oh, yes, I was talking with one of the assessors last night, and he brought up a good point. We actually got into a conversation about land being granted to the town.
Yep.
Say somebody who has a piece of land and they want to grant it to the town for one reason or another. Well, and I didn't know this, but when a piece of land is taken from a property owner and granted to the town then loses all of that tax money on the piece of land.
Right.
Correct.
So, and I had no idea, so if somebody comes up and says, well, I've got 28 acres of wetlands, I wanna get rid of it, well, when we take it, we say, yeah, sure, it's fine. The town all of a sudden now loses out on all that income.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I just think if we're gonna look at, you know,
Yeah.
doing land stuff like that, or taking, or getting gifts of land for some stuff like that, we could have him come in and just give us a brief synopsis
The
of,
assessor.
right, the
Yeah.
assessor or the tax collector, somebody, put them on one of our future meetings, just to get a little bit of education
Sure.
for us in the
Yeah.
future, so that if we do, you know, look at accepting something, we might wanna look at the bigger picture of not just saying, gee whiz, it's great, we get 28 acres, but
Yeah.
then the town loses all of that tax revenue too also.
Well, until they sell it, and
Right.
they're able to collect from
The other side of that is that when they donate it, that's a big tax write-off.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's assessed for more than it's really valued, you know, if it's conservation land, wetlands, it can't be built, and somebody happens to have the tax bill that says it's worth X amount, that's what they get to write off. Well,
And
So-
I'm going to throw something in too, that actually as conservation commissioners, don't we want wetlands? Don't we want the existence of wetlands?
We do.
And even open spaces, I mean particularly open spaces like say Griffin's Dairy Barn that
Mm-hmm.
we talked about that we can use for something else. So, you know, it's definitely, I mean, it's true that the landowners get a tax, either a tax write-off or
They just stop paying the taxes on it.
yeah, in the wetlands, they just stop paying taxes. But, you know, I mean, Griffin's Dairy Barn, what are the other fields that have helped us? Most of the things that the town of Abington gets, we're not a wealthy town, is by donations. I was talking to the highway superintendent, and that beautiful building that he's in, he got that through grants. And that's what, you know, yesterday we were at the town meeting, and we were asking them to give us $10,000 to pay out the old colony for their plan, that 5-year plan. But we're going to use that to get grants for, not only maybe for buying land, but for actually restoring land. And actually, lastly, Island Grove is being done up this summer, actually, thanks to grants. So, you know, there's a reason for doing this. This is
Yeah.
kind of a trade-off. But you're
Right.
right, we do lose the income. We're not, you know, the finance committee probably aren't our fans.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, I didn't know that, just for an education wise, from them to, I know there's certain parcels that, you know, they'll say, yes, definitely, if somebody's gonna grant it to you, take it, cause it could be useful.
Right.
But there are also other parcels that, you know,
You may not
are
want-
landlocked and have no use whatsoever, or it's just,
Yeah.
it's a better use for the person that owns it to get rid of it, so they don't have to pay taxes on it than it is for, you know, the
That's
town
an
to
excellent
take
point.
it.
Yeah, it's an excellent
I didn't know
point.
if we could put them on the agenda for sometime in the future, or
Sure, to have the, either the assessor or somebody.
assessor or
from the-
tax collector,
Yeah,
or one or both.
Um,
Yeah.
that's, well, there's actually two of them. Is Leo the tax collector?
He's, yeah.
So,
Jeff History knows the assessor.
yeah. They're both incredibly helpful and nice guys, and they'd be delighted, I'm sure, to come.
Yeah, also too, I think too, they give us some more insight too on the, our open space plan, where we have some parcels that were
Yeah.
actually put in that old colony, open space guide that they just came out with. There's a lot of parcels on there, and there's a lot of stuff that they say that it's in there to have us maybe, you know, purchase in the future. And they could probably tell us, you know, which ones are
Yes,
of more of a value for us to hone in on and grab these before, you know, they go to somebody else, or
And actually, Joe, for once I'm actually in front of you, because when I started out with Nancy, we did go down to Jack Pistorino, and I did get a list of the land that's in, what is it, section 33 or whatever it is, that it's in farming land or land that he has, that they get a special tax write-off for, and that land can be donated later on. And they did give us a list of lands. Mr. Pistorino gave us that, and I'll pass that on to Nancy. That's an excellent idea. Cool. Any other issues? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Russ?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second?
Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.